Crime Detective. Mystery continues.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mr. Bin. Welcome to Crime Detective with a new crime story.
India's first woman serial killer, Cyanide Mallika. In the second half of 2007, the death of multiple women under mysterious circumstances in the outskirts of Bengaluru, mainly in places connected to temples, resulted in panic among the public. Curiously enough, the bodies had no wounds or signs of assault. The absence of any leads and the fact that most of the bodies were in a decomposed state when found meant that the police could hardly get to the bottom of the matter. In the outskirts of Bangalore, 5 women were found dead in the span of 3 months. There were no marks on their bodies, no sign of assault, sexual or physical. Upon conducting their autopsy, cyanide was found in their system. Who would you think committed these murders? What could be the motive behind them? Most people would have conjured the image of a man with sinister motives behind the murder of these women. Some of these cases were filed as unnatural deaths. But it took nearly a decade for the department to zero in on the culprit, K.D. Kempamma alias Cyanide Mallika, India's first convicted woman serial killer. Hailing from Kaggalipura, a village on the outskirts of Bengaluru, a young K.D. Kempamma was married to a tailor, a man who could offer her a modest life. But modest was not what she wanted. Her ambition, overnight success, a rags to riches story. In a world where violence is often associated with masculinity, her story has turned every notion about women being mild and innocent on its head. As reported widely in the media, her story is more nerve-wracking than those of her male counterparts. Her motive was not driven by a disturbed childhood or traumatic life. She just wanted to be rich, so she preyed upon the unsuspecting women. It's not that Kempamma did not try to turn her fate in the normal way first. She even ran her own chit finance business. It is when she suffered business losses that things started to change. Her husband left her soon after and she was thrown out of her own house. This was her life until 1998, before Kempamma started to take her first steps towards becoming the ruthless Cyanide Mallika. She committed her first murder in 1999, according to records. Here is the story of India's first convicted woman serial killer, K.D. Kempamma, who was called Cyanide Mallika because she used potassium cyanide in her cold-blooded killings. The birth of a killer left on her own without a family, Kempamma started working as a domestic help and started stealing from the places she worked at. She served 1 year in prison because of a theft. Once she came out of the prison, Kempamma embarked on her bloody journey. She found her prey at temples in distressed, vulnerable but well-off women who would easily take her bait. These women were often childless or facing marital or family issues. As a kind-looking, middle-aged woman, Kempamma would easily gain their confidence after promising them a solution through a special prayer. She would ask them to come for the ritual dressed in their best clothes and jewelry. She would then take them to a desolate area. Once there, Mallika would start the puja. She would ask her victims to close their eyes, forcibly pushing cyanide powder mixed with either food or drink into their mouths. Senior advocate Pinky Anand wrote in her book, Trials of Truth, India's Landmark Criminal Cases. Once the victims collapsed, she would flee with the jewelry, cash and all other valuables. Cyanide Mallika kept killing between 1999 and 2007. She changed her name after every crime to not get caught by the police. Her first recorded victim was a 30-year-old rich woman in Bengaluru, and she went on to kill at least 5 more. Karnataka's K.D. Kempamma, also known as Cyanide Mallika, is India's first convicted female serial killer. Between 1998 and 2007, she is suspected of having been responsible for the deaths of 6 women in the state of Karnataka. It is believed that she took a 7-year-long sabbatical after her first murder. Thanks to patriarchal thought models, the fact that these victims were killed by a woman kept astounding the investigating officers for a long time. By no means is this a horror story. This is a tale of greed and ambition. It is the story of a simple woman who was so incredibly aspirational that nothing could stand in the way of her dreams, not even human lives. Born in 1970, Kempamma and her family resided in the suburbs of Bangalore. They were a family of modest means, as were the majority of the other families in the village. Kempamma, however, always had an ambitious mind. She had always been attracted to a more opulent lifestyle. And she was still in favor of taking the shortest route to her objectives. Kempamma married a tailor as a teenager and became a mother soon after. She had 2 more children after that. Kempamma was dissatisfied with life's offerings. She desired more, much more. She was born in Kaglipura, Karnataka, and served as a house help there. Kempamma decided to become wealthy overnight and began stealing from the homes where she worked as domestic help. Following this, she decided to start a chit fund near her home to help her achieve her goals, which she eventually did. However, the company suffered significant losses, and the family of 5 was engulfed in debts as a result of Kempamma. Kempamma was thrown out of the house by her husband in a fit of rage, and in 1998, her husband deserted her. Following the loss of her business, Cyanide Mallika was forced to find new ways to make money. The most straightforward seemed to be duping women in distress. Women from well-off families who were in distress were targeted under this scheme. After working as domestic help for a while, she finally found employment at a goldsmith's. That too, however, didn't work out eventually. Her job at the jewelers, however, was not in vain. She had acquired a one-way ticket to riches in the form of cyanide. Kempamma says that the movies she watched taught her about cyanide and its use as a poison. While it might have been a plagiarized idea to use cyanide, the rest of the strategy was special. Kempamma devised a brilliant, murderous idea to become rich in a matter of days. Modus operandi of Kempamma. A middle-aged woman adorned in a Kanjivaram sari, flowers in her hand, and a smile on her face. This is how many remembered K.D. Kempamma. When she was caught at a bus stand in Bengaluru in 2007. To some she was Jayamma, to others she was Lakshmi or Santramma, but to the world she is Cyanide Mallika. This kind-looking woman was actually on the run after killing her last victim when the police intercepted her. After killing 6 women who she found at temples across Bengaluru, Kampamma is now lodged in an anonymous jail after her death sentence was reduced to a life term after a court ruling in 2012. A seemingly ordinary woman with a modest life to becoming a deadly serial killer, K.D. Kempamma's ambition knew no bounds. Kempamma would go to the temple every day and keep track of what was going on. She kept a close eye on the regulars who seemed to be in a lot of pain. Kempamma would approach them as a holy woman when the time was right and lend her ears to their problems. She was well aware that they were in pain and knew just what they desired. She decided to assist them with a mandala puja, which she promised would solve all of their problems. She will also ask them to put on their most precious dress and all of their jewels for the ceremony. Kempamma would often invite them to a temple on the outskirts that they were unfamiliar with. She'd ask them to close their eyes and pray after that. They had no idea it would be their last. Then she would serve them cyanide-laced water as holy water. And that was her modus operandi. Her first murder occurred in the year 1998. In 1999, Cyanide Mallika's first victim was a 30-year-old wealthy woman in Bengaluru's outskirts. Kempamma's eyes were often drawn to valuable items. All of her victims were elderly women going through tough times in their lives, such as a woman with asthma who wanted to get rid of it, a 59-year-old woman who wanted to locate her missing boy, and so on. Kempamma would change her identity entirely after each murder. In 2000, she was arrested for attempting to steal valuables from a home. Kempamma was invited to conduct a ceremony there, but the woman screamed and was rescued by her relatives. She, however, was only sentenced to 6 months in jail for her crime. Kempamma is said to have gone 7 years without being involved in another murder after her first. There are claims that she killed many people during this time period, but this remains a mystery to this day. Kempamma, on the other hand, murdered 5 of her victims while on a killing spree in a 3-month stretch in 2007. Renuka, a Bengaluru resident whose body was discovered in a guest house, was murdered in 2006 by Cyanide Mallika. The murderer, otherwise called Jayamma, was actually Kempamma, according to the police report. While the cops were on the lookout for Jayamma, Kempamma chose Nagveni as her next victim. Nagveni was childless and therefore fell victim to Cyanide Mallika's deception. Mallika summoned Nagveni to a temple for a special prayer and offered her poison as an offering. Police apprehended Cyanide Mallika as she fled with Nagveni's jewelry. She was nicknamed Cyanide Mallika because when she introduced herself to her last victim, she called herself Mallika. Cyanide Mallika was arrested and sentenced to death in 2012. Her death penalty was commuted to a life sentence at Bengaluru's Parappana Agrahara Central Jail. She was the first person in the state of Karnataka to be sentenced to death. How she was caught. When Mallika killed Bengaluru-based Renuka in 2006 and the police recovered her body from a guest house. Clues during the investigation led to one Jayamma, who turned out to be Cyanide Mallika. While the police were trying to catch hold of her, she had moved on to her next prey, a childless Nagveni. Mallika had called Nagveni for a special ritual, made her consume cyanide and fled with her jewelry. The police found the jewelry with her when they caught her. In 2012, Cyanide Mallika was handed out the death sentence following her conviction, which was later commuted to a life term. She was convicted in 13 murders. K.D. Kempamma alias Cyanide Mallika had killed about 8 women between 1st November 2007 and 18th December 2007. There were many similarities in the deaths, including the link to places of worship and the use of cyanide. Retired cop S.K. Umesh believes that though she was convicted in 13 murders, Kempamma may have committed more. When it comes to psychopaths and serial killers, we usually believe that their killing instinct was wired into their brain from birth. But couldn't there have been other circumstances that led to the same amount? Cyanide Mallika is still a mystery. Although we always try to justify the brutality of murders by reaching back in time to find something that went horribly wrong during the killer's formative years. Cyanide Mallika's early life offers no such clues, as there is little to no details about that time. However, upon reading of the facts surrounding the murders, it leads us to believe that she was motivated solely by financial gain. In 2012, Cyanide Mallika was given the death sentence following her conviction, which was later turned into a life term. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe Crime Detective for latest updates about the crimes news and many more videos about crimes around the world.